What do you think about Marathon? Is this game DOA, or is hopefully Bungie going to pull a miracle? That's kind of loaded. What do you think about it?
I think they're going to cancel it.
Really?
Ooh. Yeah.
Jeez. Speak, man.
I've heard more than 2 or 3 people talk about that, saying that it's not 100%, and it's not even a rumor. It's not even a fact. Not even close to being a fact. But it has made its way around in certain circles that people have discussed that it may not have actually even come out at all. So that's a possibility. I mean, personally, at this point, depending on how much money they poured into it or whatever, Bungie has been a failed experiment from company to company to company for years, apart from Destiny Destiny doing what it's doing. But them as a company is a failed company. I'm not talking about their final product. I think at this point, your best bet is to actually just take the best developers out of there and just get rid of everybody else, dissolve it. Take the best developers and all the best talent, and then move them into your other first-party studios to boost up their.
So, in a week where Sony has been taking hits after hits, it seems Bungie has been doing just the same. In this case, they are trying to become the next Concord. Concord has cost Sony over $200 million, and it looks like Bungie is about to cost them another 3.6. Things just haven't gone the way Bungie have wanted, and whether it's been because of Microsoft or Activision, as they would like to blame it, especially that musician whose name, Marty McDonald, that's the one, who likes to blame Microsoft. Even to this day, he is actively blaming Microsoft for the failures of Bungie. No one is pointing the fingers at Bungie, and the reality is, the moment Bungie sold, to Sony at $3.6 billion, that was the end of, Bungie. Bungie, as you knew it, as an independent company, ceased to exist. I know people were saying that they were independent, and they had autonomy, and they could do what they wanted, and Sony can't interfere, and all along I said that this was a whole pile of rubbish. Sony controls them like Freddy Krueger in Freddy's dreams. The reality is, if Sony said jump, the question was how high. If Sony said run, it was how far. That's the relationship that they had, and as soon as they missed a target, it was game over. Sony has been on their case for quite some time, and despite all the efforts that I've said to people, this isn't a good deal for Bungie. And apparently, as we found out, while everything was booming during CVID, every company was recording record profits. Bungie was on its way into insolvency. It's crazy how bad this company was managed, and now the only game that is coming out realistically after all their incubation projects have been put to a hold, and they've gotten rid of 20% of their staff force, Marathon is could potentially get cancelled, and Bungie as we know it could be dissolved. This is pretty crazy, and honestly, I'm genuinely both surprised and not surprised. And on a week where Sony has been taking massive L shots for the PS5 Pro and its pricing, and I know people are trying to put the server as it's an enthusiast's console. Get out of here. Don't give me that rubbish. And I know Jeff Keighley has been trying to damage control this like there is no tomorrow. My dude tweeted more than probably the whole of the internet collective put together just to try and the guy tried to go into mathematical equations just to try and prove Sony's innocence. That's how far that dude was going. But none of that is flying, especially after Richard turned around and said, don't buy it, guys, because at the end of the day, if you're expecting 60 FPS from this console ain't for you, because it's not going to give you that for every game. But Bungie has, been another really, really bad mess for Sony. They spent $3.6 billion. They, on face value at the very least, Bungie had autonomy, but really Sony was running the show all along. And despite people saying no, they really were. And as we now come to find out, that has always been the case. But one has to wonder what exactly is going on, when the mistakes from Concord just haven't been learned. And as we're about to see now, you can see here that Bungie is reportedly considering a $40 price tag for Marathon. It would match the launch price of one of this year's biggest releases, Helldivers 2, which is now pretty much dead, and one of 2024's biggest flops, Concord, which is dead, which were also published by Sony. So they're trying to go down this route that I guess originally did work for Helldivers, because Helldivers was damn successful until, both Sony and Arrowhead decided that it was within their God-given right to absolutely destroy the game. But Concord, which came out in a crowded market, really should have been free to play, and it probably would have had a chance to survive. But with a price tag, just no one was willing to gamble on it, and with the community already against it, there was just no chance. So what does this mean for Marathon in a place where Marathon has not only just come and decided to enter a field that's, got free-to-play versions of them, most notably Tarkov and PUBG. Both of these, PUBG I guess is a battle royale, but Tarkov especially is a extraction shooter, the most popular one, and that one is pretty much, the go-to game for streamers. How is it going to infiltrate that with a price tag of $40 or £35 as it's going to be in the UK? We've got this as well. Marathon Bungie's upcoming class-based extraction shooter appears to be targeting a $40 launch price. To me, this is crazy. It looks like nothing has been learnt from Bungie at all, or Sony. They came in and got rid of Factions 2, Spider-Man Online, Twisted Metal, and then said, right, Concord was the way to go, because they believe that the embarrassment of Concord could cover up the misfortunes of Bungie and Destiny and every other project they're working on, and obviously that did not work. And now they're trying to do, Sony hasn't clearly learned their mistake from trying to put a price tag on it. If you look at the likes of Diablo 4, which just recorded $1 billion in revenue, it's crazy how much of that came from microtransactions through the power of Game Pass, where the game was just put onto the service. So not only are they getting money from the subscription service, but those people that are on the subscription service, because they got the game quote-unquote free, they feel more inclined to be able to spend a few bob in the microtransaction store. Prime example, I've not played COD in years. I tried Modern Warfare 3 because it came on Game Pass. I played the campaign, and then I tried the beta for Black Ops 6. I really enjoyed it, my kids enjoyed it, so I picked up the Vault Edition. They got the Vault Edition off me, £30, that they would never have gotten if this game was a £70 price tag only. So they've got money of people like me who would normally not drop a dime. And it works, right? So in games like this, you do not want a barrier entry. This sort of game just needs to be free to play with microtransactions to take it along, but they just don't learn. But the one thing that people kept on coming back to me was, Chaos, you don't know what you're talking about. It's all in the contract. They have full autonomy. They can do what they want. Nothing, Sony can do about it. The only thing, in my opinion, that Bungie managed to stipulate into the contract was the fact that those games would go onto all platforms. And in my opinion now, I can see Destiny 3, if it ever becomes a thing, and Marathon, if it ever does actually come out, after now we're hearing that it could actually just fall apart, not actually coming to the Series X platform, because at the end of the day, Sony would not like this game on Xbox. In fact, Sony doesn't want any of their games on Xbox. Even MLB pissed them off. They actually came out publicly and said, if we had a choice, we would not release this on Xbox. And we clearly saw this with Lego Horizon. It's coming out on the Switch. It could have clearly been ported to the Xbox too, and it would have sold. There is a market there for it. But instead, they chose not to, because as far as Sony are concerned, they would rather see, they want to kill Xbox. They want to destroy Xbox. They want to remove Xbox from existence. So at the end of the day, they control the market, they control the pricing, and $1,000 PS6 is going to be the next thing coming. And it's heading that way if they could continue to get their way. But thankfully, there's been a big uproar with the PS5 Pro pricing, and maybe Sony will take back some of it. I doubt it at this point. But we come to this article over here, and it's pretty damning, really. You see here, Sony said in May that Helldivers 2 became PlayStation's fastest selling game launch ever. And if you notice, it's not console, it's PlayStation's, which means PC and console. And PC, I think, had like a 7-to-3 ratio on this game, so clearly the majority of the copies were bought on PC. In fact, when you were trying to log in, PC players were prioritized over console players. In contrast, Concord pulled 20,000 copies. It was embarrassing. Unlike Helldivers 2 and Concord, Marathon is also coming to Xbox Series X, which I doubt is going to happen if Sony have their way, with full crossplay and cross-save across PC and consoles. One source told the Game Post that the core gameplay structure of class-based sci-fi shooter is similar to titles like Escape from Tarkov, but with a Bungie twist. Whatever that twist may be, I just think putting a $40 price tag on a game is so dumb, it's stupid. And it just shows that no matter what happens in the wake of Sony, they just do not learn, and their arrogance will not let up. But this is just another fat L for them, and they will learn the hard way when this game flops as well. Now, my concern obviously is what is going to happen to Bungie as a publishing company, because I can see them disappearing as well. It's also claimed that there are currently 2 maps in the playable state, one set aboard the Marathon ship and another which takes place in an abandoned colony planetside. They were targeting a 2024 release, but that's been delayed. A former lawyer representing Bungie claims that Sony is forcing Bungie to get their head out of their asses. Very much needed, especially with how much Sony paid for them. How much extra Sony paid for them. Got a feeling Bungie Publishing could be closing soon. And this has been something that's been talked about for a while, and in my opinion, it's getting dangerously close to that point. Now, the problem you have here is that everyone believed that, Bungie held autonomy because that was what was told, and that paper, and I've said from the very beginning, and everyone mocked me, called me an idiot, called me a twat, called me all the names under the sun. The ponies mainly, mind you, not the Xbox fans. It was purely the ponies who were saying that I was wrong. Well, do you know what? I was right and you were wrong. And I'm egotistical enough to actually say that you ponies were wrong and I was right. Sony held full autonomy at all times, and it's nothing that Bungie could do about it. That contract that they signed, pretty much, if you ask me, was multi-platform focused only, and the fact that Bungie always likes to release their games multi-platform, and that was probably their stipulation. They may have had some creative ideas, but the bottom line is, if Sony said jump, Bungie would say how high. If Sony said run, Bungie would say how far. That is literally how this would work, because Bungie held them by the ball, Sony held them by the balls and told them this is how it's going to work. And if you miss your targets, kiss your multi-platform thesis goodbye, because it's gone. And that's basically what happened. The reality is Bungie never had autonomy. Bungie never had full control. They kind of enjoyed a coasting relationship side by side with Sony, and Sony, hoping that Bungie would, piss them off enough to actually put some effort in to destroy them, would actually happen, considering Bungie did something that absolutely Sony did despise, and that was putting games on Xbox. They absolutely hate it. They don't care if Microsoft puts games on PlayStation, because for PlayStation customers that just means more games. But Sony would love to see Xbox dead. That is just the reality of it. They would love to be the only console on the market where everyone buys their hardware and they can continue that hardware tradition forevermore. Even though their co-CEO has said that basically console sales aren't enough anymore because they're not getting any new players. They need to now expand to other platforms and, PCs. And we're going to see day and date eventually. But Bungie, in this situation, especially with Marathon, if Marathon is failing, this is not going to be good. Marathon is their pretty much last holy grail. Destiny is on life support. With its 2 updates a year, no real big expansions coming anymore, it's kind of getting to a point where, their player numbers have hit record low. Even Astacross, one of the biggest Destiny content creators in my eyes, has turned around and started looking elsewhere. He was reacting to a Warframe video, and when the dude video he was watching that he was reacting to was talking about the features that were added to Warframe, you could see the utter disappointment in his face when he was talking back to his chat on his stream and saying, you know, these are the things that we've been begging Bungie for. We've been asking for years and they just don't listen to us. Even the once a month Q&A the devs have with their community, something that, you know, that open dialogue to make their game better. People have been asking for this from Bungie for years, but Bungie's arrogance and ignorance prevailed ever more. And in the end, we know why, because they didn't value their players, they didn't value their customers. All they valued was the dollar and how they could milk their community. And in the end, Sony saw that and said, right, we really want that Destiny IP. Marathon, in my opinion, has a really big chance of failing. And not just failing, as Mag said, and I kind of agree with Mag, I think this could actually not even come out. I can see Sony eventually just turning around and saying, right, we lost 200 million with Concord. That's a massive L. We're about to lose another $3.6 billion with Bungie. We're going to take the IP and that will subsidize that loss a little bit. We're going to take the talent and bring that into, you know, SIE. And then just dissolve Bungie as a company and get rid of them. Get rid of the overheads, get rid of the, you know, the CEOs and stuff to reduce that total outgoing. It's not good. But it's crazy that they haven't learned from this. And when, you know, for all the faults that Bungie is having right now, Sony going around and saying that they're going to put, or at least that's the reports, that there's going to be a $40 price tag on Marathon is absolutely crazy. It just shows that they haven't learnt anything at all from Concord. Nothing. And that $200 million, you know, mistake is about to happen again. You don't go into a market that is saturated, especially coming into the market 10 years late, and turning around and saying, right, we've got a game that we think will rock your socks, despite the fact that the people that have tested the game have said this is utterly crap, and we're going to charge you $40 for it. Who does that? That is the arrogance that Sony has right now, and it's going to bite them in the backside again. It will. And good luck to them. At the moment, Sony is on L after L after L. And, you know, that train looks like it's going to continue until the end of the year. PS5 Pro pricing, massive L. Concord, massive L. Helldivers 2, it turned out to be a massive L, even though the launch at least, was phenomenal. And now they're talking about Marathon potentially just being canned because they really have no direction for it. It went from a extraction shooter to a hero shooter, now back to an extraction shooter with classes like Tarkov. It's weird, right? The game doesn't even know what it wants to be. It's totally weird, but that is what it is at the moment. I don't know. When you're hearing stuff like Sony is forcing Bungie to get their head out of their asses, Bungie never had control. And I was right. Sony always had them by the noose. And it was always how tight Sony was squeezing that noose around their necks before they actually took complete control. And said, right, we're done babysitting you. We're going to show you how it's done. And maybe it's for the better. Because at the end of the day, at a time when everyone was profiting and making bank during CVID, Bungie clearly couldn't make a buck. And they were almost at insolvency. That pretty much tells you how bad Bungie runs a business and how bad Peter Parsons is in running a business. And the fact that he's even still there is an embarrassment, not to just the staff at Bungie, but to Sony head executives as well. They should never have kept him. He should be gone. But anyway, folks, that's it. You know, another massive L for Sony. It just continues to ride that train. And it looks like, unfortunately, Bungie may be no more. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that discussion, and I'll see you in the next one. Remain legend.